I would love to acknowledge that we are gathered this evening on the unsurrendered traditional territory of the Coast-Tsimshian Smalyak speaking people. And I would just love to acknowledge as an uninvited guest on these lands that I do take a serious responsibility in my role in understanding the language, the culture, and the relationship to the land of the Coast-Tsimshian people. And just to pause for a moment and really acknowledge this incredible part of Mother Earth that we get to live on, and how incredible she has been lately. The weather, the sun, the rivers, just so glorious. So thank you all so much for that pause. I would love to call for the adoption of the agenda. Trustee Dalton, seconded. Trustee Horn, all in favor? Thank you, so moved. And now I would love to pass this over to Superintendent Samuel for a wonderful presentation that I think we're all looking forward to.
Thank you, Chair Toy, and I pass the torch over to Carla Rourke to introduce our special guest for tonight.
Wonderful. I'm very pleased to introduce Christina Layton. She took on the Food Sovereignty Mentor role at Charles Hayes this year, and she's been doing some incredible things, and I'm excited for her to share with you what she's been up to.
Yeah. So I started the role in November, and my whole life I've been fishing and hunting and preserving food, and to be able to share it with the students and bring Indigenous food into the school is good, but it has its challenges as well, because we can't bring all seafood into the school. But we're trying to find ways. Like, I also commercial fish with my partner, so if we could possibly get some fish somehow through arrow trading. Brad, I've known him for many years, and he's willing to process any fish that we get for free if it's going to the school, but we have to find ways through the loopholes to get the fish properly.
Can I ask a question? Can you do it through the fish program?
I'm not sure.
I mean, like the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, like, I mean, we should all be in a partnership, right? It's an importance for Indigenous students to learn how to live off the land. And process is part of that, like the process of learning and catching and picking and all those things. So is there any way we could work with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans for the, because I know it's a lot of people that would offer food fish, right?
Yeah.
So is something to consider?
It's something to consider, but not everybody ices their fish right or handles their fish properly.
I know.
Like we were delivering some of our fish to Coast-Tsimshian plant last year, and they had to shut it down because somebody had delivered them fish that wasn't on ice. So they ruined it for everybody because they were paying the best prices to us too. So, yeah, I think it would have to be more like a select few fishermen dealing with Brad at Arrow maybe, or Coast-Tsimshian plants or Lackawan's cannery. I've also spoke to them as well, trying to get some fish from them or bycatch or something. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I believe there will be time for questions at the end of the presentation, and we're still looking forward to your presentation.
Okay, thanks. There's a little bit of reading in there for everybody, so you might wanna.
Next.
Yeah. Top part there. Is there any ways in with it so far? Yeah, questions. So this, okay. So if you just press play, it'll play right through it. Because I have them all timed, all the slides, but if you want to do it manually too, that's up to you.
Is there a sound?
There is during there's a video clip in there. They're all fine. Just like. still a bit of a pause there. It's longer than this, so you might have to press play for this one.
Na Yoixa and Autumn.
Na sla amelnam kawit ala skusit. Na gatskatzen, beans, onions, skusit ala kawits. Na sklav amelnam gaskos. It's in town, so. That one time we go, I got it.
I told him to shoot the job. Yeah, it's a man.
So you might have to hit play for the next one to carry on.
Questions or comments from the board?
I didn't eat supper, now I'm really hungry. I have fish and rice.
Trustee Horn?
I know,
I think it's
I do.
fantastic, the work you're doing, it's engaging the students so well, right? And the fact that you've been given this grant and making the most of it, so I think that's really good. I loved it how you've taken pictures and shown how the students involve themselves in the processing of the fish. And then they're able to not only watch and learn from you, but able to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that smokehouse was pretty
Yeah,
special looking.
oh,
That's fantastic. That,
It's being built in the woodworking class. This one here is Cal and Tina Robinson's smokehouse.
Oh, okay.
And they had their, he had his helpers there, so I wasn't able to show them my way of smoking, but when this one is
Where is it
completed.
gonna be stationed at?
Well,
At the
at
school?
Charles Hayes,
Oh.
I think, unless we find somewhere else to park it, but I think Charles Hayes, and then it's gonna, it could be on the trailer, so it could go to other schools, if other schools get access to fish.
Nice.
Yeah, mobile. Yeah, it's mobile. It's about 3/4 done. So I'm excited for it to be finished.
and I'd also like the students then translated Somalia and then make their TikToks out of it. And I'm hoping that TikTok available, could we find it if we went
I
looking for it?
think Miss Clifton has Instagram account with her Somalia classes.
Maybe we could get a link to it so we could see it again.
Yeah.
And also then you went on to say how you're making breakfast and sharing that with the students. So that's also another great connection.
Yeah.
And then they get to come and have the food as well. And then just overall, very impressive. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. It was-
Yes, thanks.
And the brain food, it is brain food.
Yeah.
And the two combinations of the breakfast and traditional food is like so healthy for our young people.
There's a lot of hungry kids at the schools.
There's a lot of hungry elders too.
Yeah.
With the cost of living, and so, elders are fortunate that they can they have people harvesting for them, and those are things that are good, like they sustainable, right? So,
I could probably make 3 times the amount of those vegetables that I make, and then it'd still be gone, but. You know, like I make about 60, on Mondays, and they're gone by Friday, but, those are for kids, meant for kids that get a lunch, or they're hungry. So it's good to have. But I just keep pumping up the good food to them. That's not even half the pictures that I've taken, and sometimes I don't have time to take pictures.
you're doing an awesome job.
Thanks. I got the Lions Club, I got friends within the Lions Club, and they came, they wanted to come, they knew I was working at the high school, so they came and they donated $750, so I get to go shopping for like a bigger rice cooker and, a pot set and just stuff that, will make my life easier. A nice big stainless steel pot would be nice. So yeah, I sent them a list and they dropped off the check when they, the
What
last.
about the
cake
Rotary
breakfast.
Club? The Rotary Club would support.
I haven't, put my feelers out for anybody to ask for any help because it is through, like, it is a decent grant. It's just, we're just lacking a few things. I feel an air fryer. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask for help from other organizations.
Commander, why not?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If I could, you know, if they want to meet with me and I can show them this and.
I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
We need to feed our young people.
I think your presentation you showed us would really impress anybody.
I
Yeah.
think so
Yeah.
too.
It's a little quiet though. Music in there would be.
You could always wrap it up and put some music there. I mean, you're juggling a lot of balls right now, and like, we're impressed with what you've showed us here today, like, it warms my heart to see that, we are a really caring school district, like, we have so many tools that we can still access, right?
Any further questions, comments? Yes, trustee Sanchez.
Yeah, wow. All I could say, wow, I wish I was there to have some of those delicious meals. I could tell you that much. Is this done every day at the school?
Yes.
Yes? So can I come in one day and enjoy your wonderful meal?
The Lions Club will be there at 7:15 in the morning if you wanna come for breakfast.
Oh, not breakfast, the meals.
Oh.
Well done, guys. I'm so proud of what you're doing. And the thing of it is, I could see that the kids are really into it. And that is so important. They're covering a whole lot of stuff there. They're covering their math, their storytelling, everything. Kudos to you guys. I'm very proud of what you're doing.
Thank you, Louisa.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming in tonight. Thank you for what you're doing at the school. I've been there when you've been doing fried bread, and it's cool how many kids are hanging out waiting to see how many pieces they're gonna be able to get. And just I really was aware of the sense of community and the sense of connection as the kids were. I think some were supposed to be in gym and some were on crutches, but just really that it was a place that they were still connected, and fun conversations were happening, they were laughing, and we were right in the middle of it. So, and thank you for the culture and the richness, and just what came to mind was the bounty of where we live and how you're mentoring our kids with the bounty that we live as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I hope I get the grant again next year, the year after.
We'll put it in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just applied for a grant through iSpark to try to get more within men's and chest waders. Wait to hear back from them.
Yeah.
We have some. To do more, if we have more.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
so much.
Approval of the minutes of the open board meeting held on January 15th. Trustee Beal, seconded trustee Horn. Would you like to speak to that motion? All in favor? So moved. Necessity of the closed meeting and agenda. Trustee Horn, seconder.
4.1 through 4.9.
Thank you. Seconded trustee Meyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Correspondence 5.1, we have nothing addressed to the board, and then copied to the board and wishes of the board. Trustee Horn.
Motion to receive and file 521, 522, and 523.
Seconded. Trustee Meyer. Did you care to speak to that motion?
No.
All right, trustee Meyer.
Just for 5.2.1, I just wanted to, I'll speak for myself personally, but probably for the board, that I'm very happy that they rescinded the life membership of a past trustee. So I just wanted to say that.
I'll agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Great. So moved. Superintendent of Schools report.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I turn it over to Acting Superintendent Sandra Bonner.
All right, good evening, everybody. 6.1.1 field trips, if anybody has any questions. That's page 13.
I actually, thank you, trustee Beal.
So grade 4 or 5's going skiing at Shames, and what's the date, March 7th?
Yes.
I'm a little concerned about, the skiing on Shames right now. I've heard there's been a lot of injuries because they haven't had enough snow. And so a lot of the younger people are starting to get injured up there, and I heard this from a really good source, and even when I worked up there, there was injuries, so, is there an exit plan on this? Because I mean, even when I was working in Terrace, Shames was closed one day and open one and closed one. And there's a lot of ruts there right now, so I kind of concern myself about this, especially when I see that it's grade 4 and 5, so. I guess it's all based on what they see when they get there, Sandy?
Yeah, or whether the mountain's even still open.
Yeah.
March 7th, it's
Yeah.
late in the season,
Right.
so.
Quite
Unless
often,
we-
grade 4s and 5s don't make it off the bunny hill either. Like
Right.
quite often they just stay on the boat tow.
Right.
Most of the times they don't even get to the chairlift.
Yeah, it's been a bad year for them, so I just curious, thank you.
Mhm, thank you.
Any further questions regarding field trips? No. Not seeing any.
Okay, 6.1.2 enrollment, there's the enrollment package in your, what page would that be on, page 14, and you can see that, our enrollment has kind of been slowly moving up. So it'll be interesting to see what the trend is toward the end of the year. But we're currently at, the head count of 1,861 students, which is up from December 31st. Yeah. So there's a little bit of movement into town for the students.
Any questions?
Nope.
Not seeing any.
Okay. And for 6.1.3, the superintendent's report about projects, et cetera. I just wanted to start by saying that we had an Indigenous Implementation Day last Friday, on fostering strength and resilience. And, it went very well. We were fortunate to have Denise Augustine, who's currently the superintendent of Indigenous education for the ministry, speak. And we also had Kim Spencer, who's an author, from Kitkatla, grew up in Prince Rupert. She's written a book called Weird Rules to Follow, which the interesting part about Kim's book is that she didn't write it as an anti-racist book, but that's kind of where people are, from her stories about her lived experience. This is kind of what people are noticing about her book, which is really interesting. So she's already presented to some of the schools, and yeah.
And she won an award, didn't she?
She won a few awards. Yeah.
Very awesome.
Yeah. The Indigenous Education Department, as we know, we're always very busy. There's lots going on, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that they've shared with me. The first is that they continue to support our Indigenous focused courses. They continue to support teachers with sessions and professional development and collaboration around that. Right now, there's a book study called, the book is entitled Indigenous Rights, and rights is spelled W-R-I-T-E-S. A very interesting book. It's, each chapter has a different focus, so it's almost, yeah, it's just a collection of stories, and great conversations coming out of that. We've got some student Indigenous leadership groups happening in our school district right now. PCS has a youth group. Charles Hayes has the Young Matriarchs. And these are groups for Indigenous girls that are being facilitated by the team. So they're working on an inquiry process to develop a focus for taking action while promoting leadership and youth voice and empowerment. Well, that's pretty exciting. Also, as we know, our Somalia is ongoing. The work is ongoing for the team. Digital resource updates are happening and they're still working on signage. You can see it around Prince Rupert. And that's the language, this NIFE Language Authority actually that's doing that work. From the French program, Mr. McDowell shared that all of the French immersion students at Roosevelt and Paroness, approximately 120 students, attended an all-French music event at the Leicester Center on January 26th. And then, of course, lots of the community was attending the Sugar Shack Festival. And the other exciting piece is that in preparation for kindergarten registration, we've offered a welcome to French immersion sessions in January at Roosevelt Park. And so we're excited that we've had quite a number of French immersion registrations already. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was about our ECE dual credit courses that started January 31st at Charles Hayes. And we have 16 students attending in person and 1 student from Hartley Bay. So, and that's the second year we've received funding for that. We anticipate we'll continue to see funding as that's a focus for the ministry is to support childcare. And then Susan was reporting that that we have 12 students in the before and after school care at Conrad and 13 at Pine Ridge. So that seems to be filling a need as well in our community, which we're happy to be part of it. The other piece is that we're looking at data. We are excited to share some data and have some conversations with our rights and stakeholders at our Enhancing Student Learning session on February 29th. Yeah, and we'll be sharing it with principals and looking at how we're doing in terms of our goals for the district. Thank you.
Thank you for that informative report.
Questions? Trustee Horn?
Thank you, Sandy. The before and after school programs, are they full or how are they?
Yeah, for every 12 students, we need 1 ECE support worker. So Conrad is full right now, and I think we've actually are in the process of hiring a second person because we believe we've got more students coming.
Yeah.
And Pine Ridge, we're at 13, so we had to hire the second person, so we have room to grow there.
Perfect, thank you.
In Pine Ridge, do you say? How many there?
13. So we're over the limit.
Yeah. Good, thank you for that.
Questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much for that report. Thank you. Secretary Treasurer report.
Thank you. So 7.1 on page 15 is your January 2024 expenditure reports. So these are just your 2 regular monthly financial reports at January 31st. So for these reports, I use the draft amended budget figures as they're more meaningful at this point. For the expenses that are incurred over the 12-month period, we would expect to be at about 41% remaining at the end of January. And for the expenses that are incurred over the 10-month period, we would expect to be at about 50% remaining at the end of January. So you can see at the grand total at the bottom of these reports, it shows that we have about 47% remaining, which is between these 2 totals. And then if you look at the first report, the expenditures by program report, you can take a closer look at the different program categories. Looking at function for district admin, it is expected to have about 5/12 remaining for the year at the end of January, which is about 41%. So we're looking pretty good in this category. Under function for program 40 governance category, it's a little lower than 41%. Part of this would be because of annual fees paid in the beginning of the year, such as the BCSTA fees. And then moving on to function 5, maintenance and operations, should also be at about 41% remaining. However, under function 5, program 50 plant maintenance category, the amended budget includes a reduction to supplies and services of the 1.055 million for the reimbursement of the middle school project costs. So this recovery has come out of the amended budget figure on this report, however, it hasn't been accounted for in the actuals. So in other words, on this report, our expenditures are overstated in the January reports. In February, that adjustment will be made though, so our actuals will include this 1.055 million to credit to supplies. And this will help make these reports a little bit more easier to follow. Might have gone over that really fast. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Thank you, and then I have a question. Trustee View?
Oh, I'm just kind of curious why our maintenance and of grounds is quite high compared to what I would expect it to be, where we didn't have a lot of snowfall this year. So is what's entailed in that category other than,
Some of it is salary, so there is.
okay, that's what I wondered. Okay, thanks for that. I just needed to know. Thank you.
My question is the money that's coming in from the middle school, is that where that would just naturally go is under operations, or is that a decision that would be made by the board?
So, we spoke to both the ministry and our auditors, how they'd like us to account for this. And is to put it back in the operating budget.
Yeah.
The reason it's under that category specifically is because that's where most costs that were incurred over the years came from.
Thank you. Yes, Bjorn.
Thank you for your explanation. So that was great.
Sorry.
That's
Should I do it fast?
That's fine. That was good. Thank you.
Any questions for the trustees joining us virtually? Not seeing any, thank you.
Moving on to 7.2, January 2024 Operations Department Report on page 17. Are there any questions regarding this?
Trustee Horn.
I would think that the operations department with the flu season, they're talking about keeping the schools disinfected. Very important for our students and families that rely on us not infecting their children.
That didn't come out right. I have a question too.
Trustee Beal.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a lighter question than that one. School gymnasiums, I see you have a high number of facility rentals, school gymnasium requests, in January. Can you tell us what that sort of encompasses? Like, what are we,
What's going on?
yeah, what's going on? That's it. What's going on?
Only to practices.
Is it mostly practices like for?
Well, people went to the birthday party too.
Yeah, I think I noticed that
What
one.
about hockey teams?
Okay, I just curious, like, yeah, like.
And there was
the
a
high
feast,
activity.
feast at Conrad.
Oh,
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
We're all these
Great, nice. Just like to know, like to see what's going on out there in the world of.
Almost every Sunday when
School
I walk
district,
by,
right?
there's a birthday party. In the bouncy castle.
Okay,
at
thanks.
comment.
That's nice to hear.
Any further questions? Not seeing any.
Moving on to 7.3, January 2024 Information Technology Department Report on page 18. Any questions on that?
I would just like to say that's a lovely savings from Charles Hayes of over 2,000 American First student. And how exciting this state-of-the-art desktop computers for labs. Wonderful. Trustee Horn.
I was gonna say the same. I would thank the Information Technology Department for organizing this and getting that discount for us. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. On that note, I would love to just acknowledge the IT department, for it seems that you're very aware of what is out there and also continuously putting your feelers out for what possibilities are, and it's definitely acknowledged by the board. So
It
thank you
is,
so much.
definitely.
Mhm. Any further questions? Comments? Thank you. Not seeing any committee reports. Trustee Beal.
So I do it a little different tonight, if the board would indulge me here. We have a bylaw to read tonight, what's the amended annual budget, but prior to actually reading the bylaw, I'd like, our secretary treasurer to provide the information why we're amending the budget, what it entails. So take it away, secretary treasurer, please.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna share my screen. Give me one moment. Okay. So 23-24 amended budget. And I'll just pass this off to Andrew just to start and talk about the strategic plan.
Great. Our amended budget, of course, is something that it always must consider the fulfillment of our obligations, and those obligations are from our priorities from our strategic plan. So in preparing the amended budget, we look at the statutory requirements, but also that equity is number one for us. And that, of course, is what you passed in the plan, in the strategic plan, and that includes literacy. And to some extent, it also does include numeracy, which on some slides you will see numeracy also listed, but you know it's incumbent upon us to educate students, not just in English, but also in numbers as well. Reconciliation is a stated goal. We are fulfilling our obligations to move things forward in truth and reconciliation, and this board does a number of things to support that in the district. And of course, mental health literacy, our district is one of those districts that not only follows because of the provincial plan to support mental health literacy, but also because of the high needs in our community, given our economic situation. And so we do what we can in our classrooms and with our specialists to address mental health issues.
And we heard that tonight through a presentation.
Yeah,
We heard
I was just thinking.
that there's a lot of children that could go hungry. And in today's society, that shouldn't be possible, but, we do have, like, when we see people like Christine, is it Christine? Christina, come here and do this presentation. It should warm every one of our hearts because we know that children are getting that nutritious food, and this all ties into our priorities.
I can see all of those priorities in that presentation.
Brittany?
Thank you. So this is our agenda. So Andrew just went over the strategic plan priorities. Next, I'll go over the budget timelines, and then the 23-24 amended budget comparison, then the reserves available, and then the two other funds, the special purpose fund and the capital fund. So this is the budget timeline slide that I'm sure you're very familiar with now. I won't go over it again tonight, but we just wanted to include it just as a reminder on where we currently are, and that the amended budget and bylaw are due to the ministry by February 28th. So we provided you with the ministry budget template, which is included in the agenda package. However, this is a very detailed document, so we're going to work off a summary page first. As you know, we have three funds: operating, special purpose, and capital. The main one being the operating fund, so that's where we're going to start. This slide is the operating amended budget comparison. The first column is the 22-23 actuals. The second column is the 23-24 preliminary budget. And the third column is a draft amended budget. I'll go through this and explain what changed from the preliminary budget to the amended budget. The reason we do this is because the preliminary budget is what the board approved last June, and I want to show what's changed since you approved it. So we'll start with the revenues. The operating grant has caused most of our financial challenges this year. We budgeted for a 42 FTE student decrease. However, we actually had a 14 FTE student increase. This resulted in a net increase of 56 student FTE, which would normally be good financial news. However, if you look at our operating grant, it only increased by 60,000. If you just bear with me, I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet that analyzes our operating grant. So this first section is the 22-23 preliminary figures. The first column is the FTE count. The second column is the rate, per FTE, and the third column is the dollar amount. So for example, the K-12 row is the FTE of 1,721 times the rate of 8,625, which equals 14,843,625 in funding. So the next section is the 23-24 amended figures. This is the same calculation using updated FTE figures. And the third section on the far right is the change between the two. This is the section we want to focus on today. So as you can see, we have a 62.5 FTE increase in K-12, but we're down 6 FTE in the alternate school. And in the level 2 special needs, we have an increase of 6 FTE and a decrease of 32 FTE in English language learning. On the very column called dollars, we have the impact these changes have on our operating funding. The impact on our student enrollment funding is a net increase of 591,000. If that were the only change to funding, we'd be doing really well. However, because we're in funding protection and received enrollment decline funding, our funding was reduced by 379,000. In addition to this, we received 152,000 less in labor settlement funding. This was to cover the cost of wage increases for both union and non-union staff. The summary of all of this results in about 591,000 in additional per student funding, but then is reduced by 531,000 by other factors. This is the main reason as to why we have a shortfall. So we want to make sure this is really clear to everyone. And I'm just going to go back to my presentation slide. So we just went over the operating grant. And the other main change to go over now is the other revenue category. This includes an increase of 220,000 for Jordan's principal and 130,000 for Microsoft settlement funding. As a reminder, this was regarding the Microsoft class action settlement that allowed school districts to purchase Microsoft equipment and be reimbursed. The Microsoft settlement funding has a corresponding expense increase in supplies. Moving on to expenses. As you can see, total salaries increased by about 410,000 from the preliminary to the amended budget. Teachers' salaries are up about 200,000, which is equal to about 2 teachers. This is reflective of the 56 student FTE increase. We also did a reclassification of 1 position from other professionals to principals and vice principals. That's part of why our PVP went up and our other professionals went down. Support staff and educational assistants both increased. The amended budgets are based on the actual trends to the end of January. There's also a small change of benefits as they are based on the actual trends to the end of January as well. Now moving on to supplies and services. For the most part, we kept everyone's budgets the same here. There are 2 changes that we did make in the amended budget. One was for the Microsoft settlement purchase I mentioned earlier, and the other was for the new middle school reimbursement of prior year expenses of 1.055 million. We essentially have a credit to supplies of 0.1055 million for this. We've spoken to our auditors and the ministry, and this is how they'd like it to be shown on our financials. On this summary sheet, we wanted to explain that it's showing a surplus of 607,000. However, this is made up of 2 items. The first is a shortfall of 447,000. And the second is the 1.055 million recovery for the middle school project. Just as a reminder, we would have had basically no shortfall if our per student operating funding had not been reduced by other factors. In fact, we would have a small surplus. Next, we will go over the reserves currently available. On the prior slide, you saw that the budgeted surplus for 23-24 is 607,000, which we bolded on this slide. We start off with the current year shortfall, which is actually 447,000. However, we received a reimbursement of our prior PRMS project planning costs of 1.055 million. This brings us to our current budgeted surplus of 607,000. Then we can also add our unrestricted reserve from the beginning of the year of 237,000. This then brings us to our budgeted reserve balance of 845,000. So we spend most of our time on the operating budget because this is the fund that we have discretion on how it's allocated. But we have two other funds as well, special purpose and capital. So this is a special purpose slide. Special purpose is provided by a third party for the sole purpose to carry out the function or activity. Some examples are school generated funds, scholarships, and ministry designated activities. In other words, a third party is giving us money, but they're telling us how it is to be used. This slide gives a list of the various special purpose funds. It shows the preliminary budget amount, the amended budget amount, and the change. I'll highlight some of the new funds this year. So just going down the list. So we received 80,000 for the early childhood education dual credit program. We actually received this funding in the prior year as well, but hadn't included it in the current year preliminary budget. This funding is to cover the instruction of early childhood education courses at Charles Hayes. We received 19,000 for the strengthening early years to kindergarten programs. This is new funding to support connections with preschool parents and future students. We received 131,000 for the Reaching Home program. This is funding two positions, Food Sovereignty Mentor and Indigenous Equity Mentor. The Food Mentor position's focus is around food and bringing local cultural food into the school. It also helps to provide students with meals to send home to their families. The Indigenous Equity Mentor position's focus is on building connections with family and the school, as well as to help with general school-related supplies and providing grocery gift cards and food bags to help families. We also received 52,000 for the before and after school care program. This is our second year of funding for this program as well, but hadn't included it in the current year preliminary budget. We expect this to be ongoing funding from the ministry. This funding is intended to fill the gap in our community for before and after school care. We received 25,000 for the Health Career Dual Credit Expansion Program. This is also new funding in the current year. The focus of this program is to help increase the interest of students to go into the health industry. We are currently working on this course and hope to implement it next year.
Can I just ask a question on one of those lines? Yeah. Wonderful. So the Feeding Futures Fund, is that separate than the work that we're doing with our kitchen and that?
That's the same.
That's the same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the 350 that was money from the ministry. So that's not including the capital that we write.
So I guess really what my question is, could some of that funding be going towards the Reaching Home?
I'm not too sure.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yep.
So when we just had that presentation and we were hearing where there's shortfalls, there's possibility there as well. That's all that I'm asking.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I move on?
Just, if you're asking for a question, you said that being a before and after school care, you had to hire extra people because we've filled past the 12 limit. Is that showing in this, in the before and after school care line on this? The fact that you had to hire extra?
So this is actually just the funding. So this
That's
is
just the funding that we're
Yeah,
gonna get?
it's only funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't showing how we spent it.
Okay. And so is that extra cost to us, is that covered within this funding or is it not covered?
That's a good question. We are charging the $10 a day daycare. Susan's Cobbs has been working very hard at trying to understand all of it's quite complicated. And so we are receiving some funds from parents to help us continue that program.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. So now we've gone over both the operating and the special purpose funds. So next we'll go over the capital funds. So this isn't the capital budget in the way you would think of a capital budget. For example, it doesn't include the new middle school or any other capital projects. What this is mainly about is booking depreciation on the assets we purchased. It's mainly just an accounting entry that has no impact on our true surplus. The deficit shown here is actually drawn from money we put aside for capital equipment and vehicle purchases in prior years. This money is held in the capital equity account to cover future depreciation. Again, this deficit has no impact on our true reserves. It's strictly an accounting entry. Any questions?
Trustee Horn.
I got a paper here with questions on it.
Beautiful.
Big printing on it. My printer's a bit crazy. Okay. First one. The 447 deficit is being covered from funds from the middle school. Also, there is funding protection to come off here of 111, I believe. If we have no change in enrollment, because we don't know what our enrollment's going to be, cover that amount, it will be a deficit. If we don't reduce our spending this year, that deficit will remain in the coming years. Am I correct?
No,
I didn't follow that at all.
So
that's not correct.
we have a deficit this year of 447
Yes.
because we have extra enrollment.
Right.
So therefore, our costs are higher due to that extra enrollment. So we're covering it this year because we have money from the middle school. So, but it'll still be there next year if we don't reduce our spending this year. But we will run out of money really quickly. So,
And just to pause,
yeah,
and the reason being because we're still paying off our funding protection.
yes, correct.
Yes.
When we still have a by next. and then
Okay,
it's-
for clarify,
Yep, just
just point of
can
order,
okay.
because we're not paying off the protection, we're just not getting it. So let's just, because the audience is gonna be unclear, we're not
Thank
paying
you.
anything off, we're just going to be reduce that amount.
So for clarity, we're moving out of funding protection. So
Exactly.
what funds used to come are no longer coming. So we're looking ahead for what that means.
So I can speak to this too. So excluding the new middle school reimbursement, our shortfall is the 447,000 in the current year. So for next year, we would start off with this, plus we would also lose about 150,000 in government funding due to the funding protection. So this would result in us expecting a starting point of about 597,000 shortfall for next year. Does that help?
For the next following year, right? For the 2026 budget year, is what it's saying, basically. 25, 26.
24, 25.
24, 25, I'm 1 year off, okay. So we would need to reduce our spending and we must be able to get some kind of plan, not knowing what our enrollment is gonna be. We need some kind of, I would think, that to the board, that we need some kind of plan to reduce spending over the next so many years so that we don't completely blow funds that
Surplus.
we received. And I think it needs to start this year so that we don't if we don't start this year, we won't catch up. That's my point on my first question.
And by
So I've
this-
made that point, so I'll go to question 2. So several questions here. The increase in funding from the government is not covering the increase in our costs either. So, with that, things cost more every year. And the government has not been increasing the amount we get paid. And so those costs will continue, meaning we will have to cut even further than the money that I just mentioned. And my third question was to do with the special purpose fund, but I see that I've not read that properly. But I'll ask the question anyways, because if I saw it that way, other people will too. And just want to get an explanation from you guys. So my question was that our cost increases seem to come from the special purpose fund items. And are they one-time costs or do they occur every year? So perhaps an explanation of that. Thank you.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, so this slide actually is just showing the funding. So this actually doesn't include the expenditures. So this is just the revenue that we're receiving.
Right, and that was my mistake, so I just wanted to clarify that. So thank you for that.
Sorry, and a pause, a part 2 of your question was, does this happen every year?
Yes. but I'm guessing that because you could answer this, or not me, might be best. So are these one-time costs, or do they do carry on, or are they different for each one?
So one-time revenue, right? Not
One-time
cost.
revenue, yeah.
It depends on each.
Oh, sorry,
program.
yes, I said that wrong. Sorry. Thank you.
It depends on each program.
Yes, it's different for each
Yeah.
program, right? Yeah. And we're going to question number 4. There are several new special purpose fund items, so I'm thinking that's just the fact that the things that are getting funded for are changing all the time, and the government has different programs.
Yeah.
So that's right. So these will require, I see, yeah, okay, so that's it.
And just to add to that, just for example, too, like the Reaching Home, that's actually something that is applied for.
Right,
The government doesn't just provide it to
right,
us.
right. We need to show purpose and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, and on that one, it came from an outside agency, not the government, is
Yeah,
that the
that's,
case?
yeah, that's true as well. So this isn't all ministry funding, it's
yeah.
just,
Some of them, but you need to show it in the budget because we're receiving the money and spending it.
yeah, and it comes into the special purpose rather than the operating because it does have a specific
A
purpose
specific
that it
purpose.
has to be spent on.
Thank you.
Further questions? I have a question. The way this is written up is going along with the assumption that we're using the money that came from the middle school to take us to where we are, and that's what we're deciding on tonight. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
correct.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just a draft.
And so I guess I'll read the budget. I'd like to make a motion to have all
Wait,
three.
Janet, wait, can I just ask a question, please? Sorry. I was trying to find it on my paper. And it's not on a slide that you have here, but it's in the agenda package. Page 28. And it probably is on one of your slides, but my brain is foggy. So it's on page 28 and it has that we budgeted at the beginning of the year our supplies under services and supplies at $1 million or almost $1.1 million. And then our annual budget, we only have it at 33,000. And I'm just wondering, why that is there and is that sustainable? Like that's a huge amount.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, because this is a good thing just to make everyone aware of. So I did briefly touch on this, but I'll explain it again. So this is due to the 1.055 million for the reimbursement of the middle school. So that actually was a credit to our expense account. And so therefore the budget actually decreased as well.
So we already had that in there at the beginning of the year.
No.
No, so this is just in the amended budget.
So, sorry, if I understand correctly, what you're saying is this 1.024 million wasn't there? And it is now there showing it is part of the budget because of the money that came from the middle school. Is that correct?
No, actually, so in the far right, the preliminary budget, referred to on this as the annual budget. So that 1.024, that is just all our supplies expenses. But what's happened for the amended budget is we actually have a credit to supplies of the 1.055 million. So that.
So
makes
perhaps
sense?
I could say it like this, normally we would spend over $1 million on
Exactly.
supplies.
Yeah.
But because we got a credit, this year we won't, because there was this credit in the middle school.
Yeah.
But
So
again,
all our-
next year, again, we'll go back to spending $1 million
Yes.
again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So all our current expenses are kind of being offset by this credit.
yes,
Which makes it look-
Temporarily,
temporarily,
Yeah,
because it's one.
this
time.
year.
yeah, this. only. Are there any more questions, Kate? Because
I don't know, did that provide clarity for you, trustee Meyer?
I think so. So just maybe a follow-up at when we start talking about next year's budget, will we go back to the 1.024?
Yeah, not necessarily that exact number, but yes, we'll.
Right, but we're back up there and that doesn't offset our 800,000 surplus. Like that's not gonna take $1 million
Yes.
off of that because we're upping it.
No,
So I'm on the same page as you are, trustee Meyer. How I'm reading this is, it's saying that for us to get to this annual budget, all of the money that came in has to go into that line.
Right. Right.
That's how I'm reading that for us to get here, all of that money had to be applied here, which means we don't have that 1 point any longer that came from the middle school.
Yeah.
So I just pulled up this slide again. Hopefully this might help. So at the end of this year, we have a budgeted reserve balance of 845,000 still. So of that, 1,055,000 reimbursement. When we subtract our current year shortfall of 447,000, we get to the budgeted surplus of 607,000. And then plus the unrestricted reserve from the prior year of 237. That brings us to our budgeted reserve balance for the current year, so 845,000. Does that help clarify a bit?
It doesn't at all. I'm sorry, because how I read that is then we are at this 447,000 shortfall because this 1 point whatever million has gone in and cleared out our surplus, our supplies. Sorry, so I'm not reading that correctly at all, and my concern is that this line looks like it took everything to get us to 33,000 for an amended budget of 28 million.
Yeah, but as a result of that, so that's where this 607,000 surplus comes from this year.
Got it.
See?
Thank you. So
So I
does that
trustee
help,
Lily?
trustee Maya?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to talk that through to see how we came up with that surplus.
And that's why I asked you guys to indulge me in letting her do a presentation so that we don't go in.
I didn't think we weren't.
No, well, it's not usually done like this, Kate.
Oh,
So I just wanted Brittany to share this with you and the audience so that we're transparent, because every year we have the public challenging us on having X amount of dollars, and we never had this, like, we're formulating a new relationship, right? And so it's good to share, and it's good for us to ask the questions we need to ask before I go and ask you guys to adopt this amended budget. And on that, I would like to entertain a motion for all three readings.
seconded, trustee Horn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so amended annual budget bylaw, a bylaw of the Board of Education, District Number 52, Prince Rupert, called the board to adopt the amended annual budget of the board for fiscal 2023-24 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act RSVC 1996 C412 as amended from time to time of the act. I'd like to make a motion to read this bylaw on the 20th day of February 2024.
For the first time, trustee Horn.
I'd like to make a motion to read it a second time on this 20th day of February 2024.
Seconded, trustee Horn.
And I'd like to make a motion to read it a third time and pass and adopt it on this 20th day of 2024.
And a seconder, trustee Horn, and all in favor? At this point, yes?
You can ask if anyone has any questions.
And
think
does
we've got-
anyone have any questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? I've done. All in favor? Yes, so moved. Thank you.
Committee reports is, we discussed in the financial, our financial committee, sorry, I don't know. Anyway, it's the trustee remuneration allowance review and revision. This doesn't need an adoption, it's for information, and it actually doesn't need to even have a motion.
Could I just make a note, on page 39 of 44, it does have here a monthly allowance of $900. And if we could have that read, an annual.
Annual.
Yes, thank you.
So anyway,
And for-
the.
And sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
that was what I was gonna say.
Okay, so the secretary treasurer, working with the policy committee, I guess, did some research and determined that, in light of, what other districts are doing, she did
Average.
an average, sorry, of, several districts, and this is what, was presented to the finance committee. So I guess you may want to open the floor for discussion, Kate?
Discussion, questions? Trustee Meyer?
Yeah, it just says that the recommendation, it says that the board approve the increase for the trustee remuneration effective January 1st. So I think we do have to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't,
Yeah, just
Pardon
because we
me?
think it's a slight change.
That has been struck, no? Am I reading that correctly? Is it this? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it's not struck on mine.
well, the thing is, it's overlapping with the policy, that's why it's really just a review of the report. And there's a policy, so you really don't need to overlap on making a motion on two of the same, you know what I'm saying? But if the board so desires, I'll make a motion that it be approved.
Seconded,
Second that.
trustee Horn? Would you like to speak to that motion?
I would, I did oppose actually, an increase in the remuneration because it takes away from our students' body, but, it was presented to us and I just need to hear what the rest of the people have to say. I realize that we do a lot of extra work for the board. I realize we travel, we take that time away from our jobs. Personally, I mean, me, and many of you take time away from your jobs, right? So I look at all that and I don't see that it's a huge increase. So how can I say I'm opposed to something that impacts everyone with the cost of living and the expected travel on us? Now, if it was more than what's presented to us, I'd probably have some issues with it, but on that note, James has seconded, and Kate, you can ask if anyone else wants to discuss it.
Trustee Horn?
Yes, I also believe it's done in a fair way, and we've averaged it amongst all the other districts. And so I think it's a fair way of doing it, and I agree that it's correct.
I would just like to share that thinking long-term, everything is increasing. I do not plan to be on this board forever. Somebody else will come into this role, and for a trustee to have to vote on their, to make things come up to the cost of living, if this current board doesn't follow a process that sees a gradual increase, is a hard place for a new trustee to be. Any further thoughts, comments, discussion? Yes, trustee Meyer?
I am just wondering, and you guys probably talked about it in another meeting, but I've been a trustee for, what is it, 5 years now or whatever, and we have never voted on an increase. It was just built into our policy that pay would increase by whatever the averages are. So the way that this reads now, is it every 2 years then the board would vote on an increase, or is it every 2 years it's just done the same way, like it's the average of districts around us?
It's every even year the board looks at other districts and the secretary treasurer provides us with the information, and the board is usually in policy and votes on the policy. This is something new. It's usually a policy, but that's fine, Brittany. I mean, I like the fact that we are being a transparent board and that you've given us all the information that we need to make an informed decision. And I don't think, like, considering what it is, I totally agree with Kate. In the future, boards need to be able to, we need to have people at the table that want to be here, right? If we have young families that have to take time away from their jobs and we're not gonna get the people sitting here that support student needs. So that being said, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And just for clarity, trustee Meyer, I believe what I heard your question was that past practice has been that it just increases based on an average, not based on a vote by the board. And if I heard correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, the question was if every even year, is it going to come back to the board to look at voting on this increase?
Yes, yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
I don't know who.
Yeah, it would be.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
what I'm hearing is yes, it
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea too, because honestly, when I became a trustee, I had no idea what the pay was. I had and I could not find it in any minutes for like 10 years. And so it was kind of like just, they're like, here's your paycheck. And I was like, oh, thank God I got something. Because it's a lot of time, right? And so I had no idea. It could have been $200. I had absolutely no idea. So I'm actually very glad that it's in a public package and that's now in a public minute so that people that want to run and want to make change know what they're going to be paid for their time. Okay, that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Not seeing any, we have a motion on the floor to approve as this is outlined, and all in favor? Okay, so moved. Thank you.
And that concludes my business on Finance Committee.
I have a PRMS New School
Oh.
update.
I'm sorry about that.
I'm fine.
And I will forward that over to the superintendent.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair. and
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair. We met, in the last 2 weeks ago, we met with the two architects who've been chosen for the project, as well as our two project managers from your school board. And we did a site tour. We also met with representatives from two of the nations, Metlakatla and Metlakatla, Lac Spalams, and Hartley Bay. Like I say, we did a site visit. We toured the school, walked the four corners of the property, as we say, so the architects can start visioning how the building might be situated. We also met with representatives from the city of Prince Rupert to talk about things like sewer lines and property lines and property pieces of property. And as well, we met with the students from a representative group of students and staff from Prince Rupert Middle School. And the architects were holding, a meaningful conversation with them to talk about what they would like to see in the new school, given that they use it on a daily basis. We met with the trustees for dinner on the first Monday night so that we can establish that working relationship. And my understanding is we are planning for the architects to come back in the second week of March for further consultation with students, staff, and also our local Indigenous nations. That is my report.
Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, I might
Trustee
ask,
Horn?
I wasn't able to attend as I was out of town to that open house. How did it seem, the presentation, how did it seem, to give me an idea of what?
Oh, correct. Sorry,
That's okay.
Horn, that, we had open house that night.
Yeah.
I'm amazed my colleagues did not alert me to that fact. It was, on the Tuesday night, we held open house. It was advertised widely on social media and, in newspapers and also in circulars or flyers that went to every home in the area. Like I say, it wasn't well attended, but those who did attend, I think, helped me out 25 people. And the architects reported that they had very good conversations with members of the public and some of you, the trustees who were there. They don't have a lot to show just yet because they had the concept drawings just to show where the school would be situated. And, but the comments were really good, concerns about parking, concerns about, dust during construction, all very preliminary, but the architects certainly will be addressing those issues.
And does the public have a means of seeing what was presented? Is it on a website maybe?
No, it is, it was.
I understand it's already up on the website,
Okay, good, thank you.
a summary.
Yeah,
Right,
summary,
and,
yes.
and the project does require us to regularly update on our social media, where we're at with the project, because it is over 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
If I could share, the lead from Vancouver School Board was quite amazed that already prior to that event, it was the slides that were shared that night were already on the SD52
On the
website.
yeah.
And he commented, well, I can share that later, and he also was happy that local people that will probably be involved came to attendance, and that people of the public that came stayed some to the very, very end. And there seemed to be a lot of good dialogue and conversation around the boards. Any further questions?
Thanks, Andrew.
Yes, thank you.
Framework for enhanced student learning, trustee Horn?
We didn't meet recently, but the next meeting is next week on Thursday, February the 29th.
You bet. Provincial council, trustee Horn?
And that hasn't met recently and meets, coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Indigenous Ed Council, we have not met. And policy committee, trustee Horn?
And policy committee, so there's gonna be some stuff there, there we go. So the first one, 7110 was, policies for approval. So what's happened is the board has requested to, the policy committee with some instructions around the, trustee remuneration and allowance policy that we just discussed and approved. And so the policy committee has come up with, has gone through all of the other boards' policies and come up with the one that fits best what the comments that were given to the committee were. And that's the one that's shown here. And so I'll make a motion that this gets sent for approval.
It would just be here,
No,
but it
not here, it's just here.
Oh, sorry, that's right. Sorry, we don't, I'm reading from here, that's why.
Mhm.
So, policy, motion that we approve the policy then. That's what it should be.
And a seconder,
Mike?
trustee Pucci? Thank you. Did you care to speak further to this?
No, just that, this was deemed to be the closest to what people were asking for. So the change that this is from what we had just discussed in the previous motion earlier was that instead of going on an average of the districts in the area, which is not done by any other board that we could find, the more common way to do it, and we feel the more fair way to do it, is to have the remuneration altered by the cost of living allowance for BC instead of by the average of all the other districts. So based off of this current amounts that were just agreed to, then in the future, every year, so this will come up as a motion then every year.
No,
Every
even years.
Does that say that in here?
Oh, I got it differently. Sorry, it's changed here into number 2 in the red, effective July 1st of each year.
Yeah,
I'd like to speak on that.
All
you
right,
can,
thank
but
you.
Well, okay, I'll let you finish.
Thank you.
so the annual adjustment to be made effective July 1 each year and will reflect the BC Consumer Price Index change. And that's,
I have trustee Beal and then trustee Pucci.
I actually can't support that. I can't support this policy. I don't think it's necessary that we review this every year. I've sat on this board nearly 17 years now, I think, and we've done it on even years, so I actually can't support this policy. So I will oppose this policy. But each and every one of you get to make your decisions.
Thank you. Trustee Pucci?
Based on how I read this, it doesn't matter if it's annually or biannually or every 2 years, as it's the cost of living, so it would be a cumulative effect. So if it's 3 years, it's 3% and 3%, it's 3% and 3%, you just get it in the second year. So the overall amount is the same when you look at it over term, and so it's just tied. So today, what we're earning today will be the effectually the same amount 25 years from now, if there was no changes to, and we just follow consumer price index as it. So basically it's the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, trustee Meyer?
I do agree with Mike, and I think every 2 year thing, I do understand where Janet's coming from. To have to look at this every year is a pain, but again, if it's like a standard policy that just comes through, we won't, it'll be kind of, okay, this is what the index is, this is what the new funds are. I am just wondering, I do not like the fact that we just upped it and now we're going to up it again July 1st though. Or is it what we just upped it is the amount, like, so we would look at it next July 1st, right?
So that would be up to Brittany. Determination of how this will work, I would think. Maybe Andrew.
Well, trustees, the policy says every year, so.
So could it be prorated from now?
Sorry, that's exactly what I say. It wouldn't matter. It would just be prorated to the difference between now and July.
Oh, in July 1st. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Do we
it's
need
not
to say-
taking like the whole year into effect.
No, we've already got our bump up into year to date.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Would it be written into the policy somehow?
I think it is written into the
I think
policy
it is
because
written.
it's effective July 1st.
Yeah.
Good.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a mover, and please remind me who was the seconder. Oh, trustee Pucci, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. And so any further discussion?
No.
Not seeing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and one opposed. Thank you. And would you like to be noted as opposed?
I would, because I don't want to take away from students. I just don't, sorry.
I'm sorry, and just to circle back, there, 8.5.1, trustee Horn, there are the meeting minutes enclosed as well
Oh,
for
Sorry.
your policy.
sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
And then, so if I go on to the next policy, travel and subsistence allowance policy, 7120. So I'll make a motion that the board approve this policy.
Seconded?
I'll second for
Pucci?
discussion.
Thank you, trustee Beal, and we're open for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, this is a blanket policy, so I would have liked to see some reference material behind this before I actually put my name behind a policy that I don't know what, I mean, yes, of course, we go to those three things, but then there's car allowance regulations, travel and all those kinds of things. I think it would have been wise of the board to actually see, if we're gonna be transparent here about remuneration, we need to be transparent about our travel and other policies, right? So there's no contents to this policy to tell me, what we're voting on here tonight. What's the cost to the board? What's the cost to the school district? I don't see any of that attached here. So I can't really make an informative vote when I don't see anything attached in this policy.
Continue.
Anyway, I'm going to oppose this and ask this to be taken back to the policy committee. I'll make a motion after the fact, but I just wanted to have a
Can I
discussion.
respond to the question?
Yes, and then I have myself on the list.
So this policy is not changed at all. It's the existing policy. It's not made, no changes were made in this year. It's just come forward in the rotation to be approved as it's
Then
That's the
why did
policy.
it come forward? I need to know that for
Because
clarification.
it was in the rotation of policies to come forward.
And I would also like to bring attention to that the regulations has the car allowance, the travel and subsistence allowance is also in regulations, as well as the approvals is in our regulations. I do have a question, however, not covered in here is the possibility that a trustee would serve on a provincial committee for BCSTA or the executive. I'm curious if the board would like that language in here.
The board may request the policy committee look at that, maybe a way to craft that.
Just question on that, what, we would probably not want to put that in here because is that not paid by, like, through,
As is the BCPC and the BCSTA Provincial Council. It says here that they're reimbursed. It is the same, but it still shows reflective on the
Okay,
trustee that's
okay,
serving
that's
as part of an
perfect, thanks
expense.
for that. Okay.
So currently, we do have a motion on the floor,
Yeah.
correct, to approve this as presented.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on this motion?
Just for knowing, James has clarified this, there's been no changes, it's just in a rotation of policy, so I can accept your explanation.
Thank you.
Trustee Meyer?
And there's been no policy, no changes to the regulations as well, right? It's all the same amount? Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. How would we amend this if policy would like to include other respective roles?
If it came, maybe we should, if it happens, then it should be adjusted then at the time that
And
it's
it is currently happening because I serve on PLC.
So then, this can come back to the policy committee to make that change and can come forward again.
So we currently have a motion on the floor, so I'm curious what our steps are.
That we should approve it as it is and just
Okay.
bring it back to the policy committee, no?
No, because we have to send this out for stakeholders.
No,
No,
we
we
Well,
don't.
this one's
This is
in-house,
This is
that's fine,
in-house.
then. This is
Yep.
in-house, okay, I have no problem then.
Great. So we have a motion on the floor to approve as it reads. All in favor?
Aye.
I see, I see 4, I believe. So I'll ask again, in favor?
Aye.
Everyone,
Approved.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion to extend the meeting.
Second.
Seconded trustee Horn. And do we ask for all in favor or we just? have
Yes.
to?
Yes,
All in favor?
Yes. Yep. Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you.
if you're in agreement, you better ask that.
Back to you, trustee Horn.
And so we have 853, which is policy 6250, district parent advisory council policy. Page to that one. Right here. So I'd make a motion to send this policy for review.
Seconder? Trustee
Trustee
Meyer?
Quigley.
Trustee Meyer, thank you. Would you care to speak to this?
Yeah, the policy committee made no changes, nor did staff to this policy. It came in the rotation.
And the motion is to send this out for review. All in favor? Approved.
And that's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. District Technology Steering Committee.
And so we had a meeting in January, late January. And there's a minutes in the back of the package. So the notable things that I got from this meeting was that the coding for the students, the training that our staff has received to get this kind of thing into the classroom is extensive, and their willingness to work and get it done was amazing, and the way that they presented it was really good. So it's great that students can do coding and run a class in coding along with their teacher, and can learn lots of things that way. So I think that was really good to hear about. The other item, there was the iPad item, and then the AI thing at the bottom in paragraph 3. We talked a bit about how AI would be presented within the school system. And when I looked in Charles Hayes's send out their weekly thing to all the
Newsletter?
newsletter, that's what it was called. It had in there, it talked about the AI and how they are handling, allowing the students to use it and the instructions for that. So that was really good to see.
Yeah.
Because that's follows through from the committee, right? So, but that's happened, so it was really good.
Any questions? Thank you very much for that report, and thank you for the work of the tech steering committee. Wonderful. Old business,
None,
new business.
none.
Great. And then information items, not on your agenda, but I was told today is Social Justice Day, so I would like to take just some awareness to that. 11.1 Provincial Council is February 24th, and my understanding is Trustee Horn will be present for that. 11.2, our next meeting is March 12th. And then 11.3, we're moving right into spring break, March 18th through the 28th. And it is attached this year to Good Friday and Easter Monday. Good Friday is March 29th and Easter Monday is April 1st. So return to school is April 2nd.
No fool.
Oh, sorry, and a correction, the board meeting is March 11th. Thank you very much. One more time, the board meeting for March is March 11th, not the 12th. And now we do have a 10-minute question and answer period.
I have a statement. Can I make a statement? Because
Sure.
I just want to congratulate all of the sporting teams that have made it into provincials. I keep seeing photos on social media, and our Rainmakers are kind of kicking butt. And so just kudos to the coaches and the volunteers and to the players. They're doing a fantastic job. And then kudos to the drama club who placed second in their zones in Smithers over the weekend that I was able to watch. And they were just absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Trustee Meyer. And you just reminded me as well, I'd like to acknowledge our students that participated in All Native. I saw some playing for their, maybe going to our schools, but playing for their home communities, and also some of our students playing for Prince Rupert. So exciting tournament and so wonderful to see.
And just to make note too, Junior All Native is hosted in Terrace this year.
Oh,
Yes.
Great.
Next month.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Pucci.
3,000 attendees. Will be not all players, but 3,000 attendees. And yeah, a week long event.
Excuse me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Second call for questions. Third call for questions. And there's kind of pressure because it's either James or yourself. Wonderful, so much. I would love to adjourn the meeting, and thank you all. And for trustees, we will see you on the other line. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.